Thank you. Thanks, Nikki. Cool. So first, well, thank you for taking the time to come here and choose this talk today. Bit of background about me. So as Mickey said, I'm a UX designer at Officeworks. So I've moved into the CX team maybe 2 years now, but before that I was in the conversion rate optimization team within Officeworks. So A/B testing is mainly what we were doing, and I thought I'd share a bit about what we did, keeping it simple, but also some tips that hopefully you can take away. So firstly, let's call it worked. What is A/B testing? So it's a quantitative research method where we present an audience with alternate designs. So usually the control, which is the current one, and then you could have a variation or two variations to measure the impact that change has on the audience. And it can help us make design decisions and communicate to stakeholders as well. So why should we include it in our UX research toolkit? It can help build confidence with stakeholders on design decisions. So how many of us have sort of been in a room where people are like, okay, that seems okay, and you've got different data points and you bring it together, but stakeholders still might not be convinced. You can use A/B testing as a tool to go, hey, what about we try it out to a certain percentage and see what it does, and yeah, help build their confidence in the designs that way. It provides evidence-based results. And yeah, it's an additional data point to use along with your other research that you're doing as well. So when to use A/B testing in UX research, you can now, a few different things. So often, I'm not sure about the rest of you, but sometimes you'll get a project come through and it's go, go, go. There's limited time for research, and A/B testing can take some time. So it depends on the company or the business that you're in. At Officeworks, we have a dedicated team and they have their own program of work. So sometimes it's getting to know what their program of work is and feeding into that, and then looking ahead of time going, okay, what projects have we got? What aligns with what they're doing, and getting that in early. And I'll go through some other okay, so the next point, high traffic areas. So high traffic areas of the site, for example, if you're talking about A/B testing online, places like your checkout on a retailer website, you might be getting high traffic, but something like a supplier landing page that maybe only people go to a short period of time, or there might not be any marketing comms leading them to that page, or different parts that might not get as much traction. Or if you think about positioning as well, things that are lower down on a page, again, and of course, like the change that you're actually making, what are you doing, and what the impact will have. So you sort of have to gauge, it might be 2 weeks and you're getting enough information and you can end the test or keep going and iterate. Or it might be something that you keep for a longer period of time, like 6 weeks plus. And I think that's important with communicating with stakeholders as well, because I know often people would come to us and be like, oh, we've got this great idea. Can you get it up for us in a test? We need to know what's happening ASAP. And it's like, actually, this is going to take a little bit of time to get some significant results so that we can accurately determine what's happening. When not to use it. So consider, there'll be lots of ideas and lots of things you want to test, but if, for example, you have multiple changes happening on the one page, it'll be difficult to determine, is it because of that one change that's having that impact? So consider that and schedule things so that, you're not changing too much. But conversely to that, you could do like a whole experience change, and what does the impact that has as well. And then, pages, again, thinking about areas of low traffic, considering that that's probably going to take a little bit longer. It's not to say not to do it, but considering the impact that it'll take a bit longer to get results. So I summarise the testing process and we'll go through it a bit more in detail. But okay, to start off, so consider and prioritise ideas. So It might come from a project that you're working on. It might come from the stakeholders that you're working with and them questioning certain things. It might come from user interviews and you found that there are some different things, different directions you could go in and you want to look into that. It could come with strategic pillars within the organisation and perhaps it ladders up to them or it relates to those and it could come from best practice as well. So you're trying to communicate and say, look, it's actually best practice to do X, Y, Z. Hey, let's try it out and see what this looks like. And again, I've applied this all to mainly web and online, but you can apply it elsewhere as well. Then it's documenting the details of your test. Now, this is really important. I mean, you probably do that for everything, but especially when it comes to communicating this back with others. So I'll go into a bit of a detail, on some tips on how you can document that. Next, designing and developing. Now, within the conversion rate optimization team, we had a designer, developer, and a lead. So yes, developers are potentially required depending on the kind of tests you want to do. I know personally I was able to do a bit of front-end changes in some of the tools. And again, I'll touch on some of the tools that we used. So it can depend on what you want to do, but good to you have a team that's working on it. And then, of course, going live first to a small audience, seeing what the impact is, no negative impact. You can then increase the audience until you reach statistical significance. Of course, again, to enough large enough sample size to get those accurate results. And then, as well as that, you've got to make sure that you've got a way of reporting. Now, the tool that we use, which I'll touch on in a minute, paired with an analytics tool, so you could set up your dashboards within that. I'm not too familiar with other tools, but some of them I think have it inbuilt, so you can see your results that way, but super important, you need to know the results to know how successful or unsuccessful the test was. And then once you complete your test, it's documenting it and communicating it. So again, I'll give you some tips for that in a minute. Okay, test ideas. So as I mentioned before, test ideas, it might come from stakeholders, project initiatives, or otherwise best practice. I took some of these from interactiondesign.com.au, and yeah, actually some of them are good things to test. So like navigation menus, the styling of it, horizontal versus vertical, or it could be the interaction of them and how that works and optimizing that. It could be the buttons, what color works best. It could be things like copy, or it could be things like within the search functionality, the types of algorithm that you use to generate like in search listing results, what kind of products appear, and optimizing that experience as well. Or it could be even like things like content, like does video content resonate with people on this page or wherever? And again, helping make decisions. So documentation, this is one that I quite liked actually. So a few different tips here. One would be overall, you could have like a little code for all your different tests. So, and in my last slide, I'll show you what that kind of looked like. But, giving it a number, you could have a spreadsheet where it's got all, your test numbers and just a bit of a brief overview of what it's about. So including the background. So what's the user problem being solved? Who are your stakeholders? Where has this come from? Any data or previous research to support this, any other tests that this test might relate to. And then this, for us, we had this on like a Confluence page, then you could link it, but also other people could easily access it as well. And then again, as I mentioned, does it relate to any strategic pillars within an organisation? And again, it just helps to communicate that back up. And then, of course, number 2, your hypothesis. So we hypothesized that this change, whatever that is, will increase or decrease, whatever, because and whatever reason that is. So pretty basic template, but it helps ground and bring it back to what you're looking at. Then you want your metrics. So what's the primary metric that you want to look at? Working for a retailer, most of the time it's revenue. But, there are other things like time on page, reduce amount of scroll. It could be, and again, things that you can measure with your analytics tools. And then number 4, define your targeting. So where will this experiment run? Which area of the site? Or if you've got multiple, which website it's going to run on? Who will see it? Are you targeting your business audience? Are you targeting your personal audience? Are you targeting a type of persona perhaps? And you might have all of these set up already and you're able to just target these groups. And then, of course, what's the traffic allocation? Now, as I said at the start, when you're first going live with a test, you'd probably just want to go out to like 1% and then keep that live for 24 hours or 2 days. And again, depends, just to make sure that nothing's gone wrong. And then you can ramp that up a bit. Now, sometimes it might be, hey, something's happening for just a short amount of time. We want to get as much traffic as we can, and it's okay to ramp it up to even, 100% and 50%. And then it'll split between your control and your variation. Number 5, the variation. So you want to actually show a bit of a screen grab of what you're testing. So again, when you come back and have a look, okay, this is what we tested. So you'll have a screenshot of your control and then your variation or variations. And the percentage to which they were distributed. Then any rationale or competitor insight. So as I mentioned before, you might have other research that you're doing, you can feed that in or link off to it. And have that as a reference point in there for others to look at. Then of course, after you finish testing, your results. So have a table in there with the uplift, whether it reached statistical significance, the change. So you have your control, your variations, and what the results were. And included with that would be a bit of a summary. So why you think that happened or didn't happen, and a bit of a summary of the results. And then, of course, you don't just leave the test there and it's like, yep, that's done. No, you want to think about the next steps. Is there something you can iterate on? Or is there, this test was really successful. Our team can't implement it, but hey, there's another team that might be able to, or they'll find this information useful. So again, noting down those actions and then coming up with the implementation plan there as well. Tools and resources. So I've only used Adobe Target, and I won't say too much about them. I mean, it does the job, but that's all I'll say. I've included Optimizely because they gave me some free caps and socks at a past conference, and also others have said that they're great. I think they are actually a genuinely good tool. And when I was looking online, I think Google has a tool as well. So if anyone has any others that they've used, feel free to maybe at the end mention them as well. And then analytics. So paired with Adobe Target, you've got Adobe Analytics. Again, not going to say too much about them, but it works. And you can pair the tests up and get your info that way. Sorry, I will go back. So with Adobe Target, when you're setting up, you can set up new tests and it'll give you a bit of a preview of your website. And you can, so from my experience, just going in and making front end changes, you can it has a tool where you can kind of select bits, delete parts, so simple things. But the developers in our team do the more detailed, the bigger changes, I'll call them. And you can kind of toggle things on and off that way. So yeah, that's quite beneficial. I don't know why I'm pointing so much at the screen. It doesn't need that, but it adds to the effect. Anyway, okay. Statistical significance. Okay, so I've mentioned it a few times. So what is it? Usually when something's 95%. So again, in these tools that you'll see, it'll tell, like it'll highlight in green and it'll be like 95%. It's a sort of enough to say, yeah, this is because of this change that this is happening. So that's, and usually when you put your results in, you'll put in brackets, you know, the statistical significance so people know, yeah, that it's accurate. As I said before, consider your sample size. It can be easy to go out to a small group, reach significance and be like, yeah, sweet, this is great. And it's like, okay, well, what about if we go to a bit of a larger sample size and see how that goes? Including the conversion uplift or decrease if that's what happened, and highlighting that in the table. And then, as I mentioned before, reading the results. So why do we think this change happened or not? And sometimes it'd be there was no change, there was nothing negative that happened, and sometimes that's what you want. It's like, we recommend this because of X, Y, Z, and by having it live, we can see that it didn't have a negative impact. So sometimes, yeah, that can be a good thing too. Communicating test results. I quite enjoyed this, and maybe it's the marketing background in me. But we used to have email communications that would go out monthly to the business. Now, we're a team within a large organisation. How do you get your voice heard and let people know about what's happening? So running like monthly emails about, you know, live tests, upcoming tests, you know, results, that can be a great simple way, and people actually really loved it and be like, that's awesome, that's exciting to hear. But yeah, a bit of a preview of what you're testing. It'd be, yeah, background, what we explored, results, or, you know, what we want to explore if it hadn't happened yet. Also the good old PowerPoint method, one slider of the name of the project, again, the problem, objective, hypothesis, results, some screenshots of what you were testing, and then the table. I've scribbled out the info there, but you get the gist. And then, yeah, status. Is it live? Is it upcoming? Is it what's happening there? Cool. It looks like I butchered it actually when I that was a very quick Canva job. Next. Okay, so key takeaways from A/B testing. It bridges the gap between assumptions and evidence. It drives continuous UX improvement and better user experiences when done right. It can help build confidence with stakeholders, as I've mentioned. And I guess the key is, yeah, you can start small and test often and keep iterating on different things. And, you know, it's also keeping an eye on, you know, even to this day, sometimes I'm like, oh, this test from like a year and a half ago is still kind of relevant because not much has changed in that space. But then, of course, your audience can change and that sort of thing as well. So, yeah, it's always good. It's even you could repeat some of the same older tests in a new environment and see how they're performing and the differences there. That's all. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn if you like. Yeah, but thank you. Thank you. Actually, before I hand over the mic to Mickey, did anyone have any tools that they were using for A/B testing that they'd recommend or they've used other than Target? Yeah, go for it. I really enjoy using Maze. Okay, Maze. Okay. And does that have like an inbuilt analytics tool within that as well? Yeah, cool. Oh, you can integrate with Figma. That's awesome. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Sorry, your name was Hannah. Thanks, Hannah. Jace. Dynamic yield. Okay. Yeah. And again, that had like an inbuilt sort of, yeah, system. Yeah, cool. Awesome. I think that's all. Thank you. Questions? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so for good question. So how do you choose a sample size? Now I know on Optimizely, they actually do have like a bit of a calculator you can use to estimate it. From my experience, it's a bit more of a feel. Like you start seeing in like analytics, how many people usually visit a certain page or an area of the site, for example. And then it's more the percentage base, like going to X percent, and then you start seeing how long it takes to get results and that kind of thing. But I'd recommend, the Optimizely calculator. You can insert a bit of info there, and it helps you determine that. But usually, the tools have got things in there as well. Yeah. Great question there. Yeah, Hannah. Yeah. Yeah, there's most. So I will actually mention there's one other method, which is like a showcase, and we did like an animation thing, which actually took ages. And I was like, this is fun, but only a few people turned up. But you could send it around. So I was like, this is great. Anyway, the email actually, because so the slide was more for like people within the team, but then and because using MailChimp, you can see who's looked at it. So we'd be like, oh, this person's had a look. And like, the response. So people in their own time can digest. But I did find people would sometimes reach out and ask, oh, can we have like a one-on-one to, like with our team or our lead to be, can we know a little bit more about it, which is good. But I think the email is quite effective because then in their own time, people can look at it. But then certain audiences, they're like, we need the one-on-one. So maybe don't do the video though. Yes. Yeah, go for it. Yeah. I guess like when failures. It happens often. So you have and that's the thing, that's the benefit of having multiple tests happening, and you kind of learn and go, okay, well, that didn't work. How can we iterate on this? Or do we just, that's it. It was great to test it. That was an idea. Put that one to rest and you just move on to the next one. And I think that's the beauty of the testing, right? It's like have an idea, put it out there. Doesn't work, it doesn't work. At least you've tried. And what's the saying? Fail fast, learn fast. I think that's the one. Yeah.
1 more minute. I think I saw a question. Was there a hand back? Is there a 1 minute question? Yeah, it was going to be kind of similar.
Yeah, go for it. Right, yeah. There are differences, yeah. Now, actually, even with the tools, I'm not too sure because from memory, Target doesn't feed into the app. So, I'm not too sure what's out there, but there would be, differences. It's you can't just, apply the learnings to one to the other. One thing I will say as well, it's good to keep that repository of things that have gone wrong or things that haven't necessarily worked, because it might come up again in other conversations and you go, well, actually, we did try that, but it hasn't worked. So, it's a good question. I don't have much experience in the app space myself, but it would be, there are some crossovers, but also some differences as well. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. But I guess the development effort's probably a bit different there as well, hey, with apps, yeah. But I'd encourage, like, once people, I think, get a feel for, hey, you can just go out to a percentage and not everybody, and build that confidence up. That's, and then these emails, you get them on board on the testing train. The testing train, I just made that up on the spot. Thanks, Vicky.
Rebecca, a huge clap.